Assalamu alaikum, guys. Welcome to Cybers. I am Dr. Shah Fahad Khan, and I'm going to teach you A level chemistry in this tutorial. We are going to talk about the very first lecture, atomic structure here. Let's get started. These are our learning objectives for today of lesson one. We have further lessons coming in after this lesson. All right. So stay tuned and please do subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Let's start now. The first learning objective is that we have to understand atoms are mostly empty and they're surrounding a very dense small nucleus that contains the protons, neutrons, and electrons. Our electrons are present outside the nucleus, but protons and neutrons are present inside the nucleus. Electrons are located in the shells outside the nucleus. All right. So most of the atom space is empty, but the central location of the atom is a dense core made up of protons and neutrons. And that dense core is surrounded by electrons. We need to identify these in terms of their relative charges and masses and understand that these terms atomic number and nucleon number, and we then need to describe the distribution within an atom of these subatomic particles. These are our four learning objectives, and let's get started now. All right, guys. So atom, by definition, is the smallest fundamental particle of a matter or of an element that contains the same chemical properties as the element itself. All right, this is an atom. So we've got multiple examples of an atom. All right, we can have oxygen, we can have nitrogen, we can have fluorine. These are all elements and they have their own atoms. Now, this is a simplified model of an atom. Most of the atom space is empty except for the central core, which is a dense core, the dense nucleus that is very, very small as compared to the entire size of an atom. This dense core or the centrally located nucleus contains protons and neutrons. Protons are positively charged particles. Neutrons are neutral, as the name suggests, neutrons. Electron, on the other hand, are negatively charged as compared to the protons. Electrons are located in these shells that are present outside the nucleus. You've got the first shell, the second shell, the third shell, and so on. The first shell can have a maximum of 2 electrons only, and then this one can have 8, and then the next one can have more than that. Most of that space is empty. There's a dense nucleus located in the center. This is where most of the mass is concentrated. But what about the charges present inside an atom? Charge is present both in the nucleus as well as outside the nucleus in these electron shells. The nucleus contains positive charge due to the presence of protons inside of it, whereas these electrons are negatively charged present in these orbits. The orbit is also known as energy shell or energy level, or also called principal quantum shell or orbit. These are the four names of orbit. All right. So an orbit is also referred by these four names. So you need to know these if they are used in your exam series. Let's move on. These are the relative charges and relative masses of the subatomic particle relative to the proton, basically. The charge of proton is positive, electron is negative, and neutron is neutral. So these are the relative charges. Remember, these are just relative values. These are ratios of the charges and masses, and these are not the actual charges or the actual masses. Proton is positive 1, meaning positively charged. Electron is equal in charge but is negative, and the neutron is neutral. What about the masses? So the relative mass of proton and neutron is equal. Therefore, the ratio is 1:1. But what about electron? Electron is 1836 times or 1840 times. Some books also mention 1840, 1 over 1840, 1840 times lighter than a proton. All right. So these are the values of relative charge and mass which you need to learn. They are tested on the exam. Now let's define proton number. Proton number is also called atomic number, and as the name suggests, it's just simply the total number of protons in the nucleus of an atom. What about nucleon number or mass number? Nucleon number or mass number is actually the sum of both protons and neutrons in the nucleus, because you know that the mass of the atom is dependent upon the nucleus of the atom, because that contains a number of protons and neutrons. Electrons do not significantly add towards the mass, so they are ignored in most of the cases. So the number of protons All right, so yeah, nucleon number is just the sum of protons and neutrons in the nucleus. And just one fact to remember, that proton number always equals the number of electrons. So this means that positive charges are always equal to the negative charges. Because they are equal, they cancel each other out, and hence the overall charge on an atom is always neutral, right? So this finishes off our very first lesson. Thank you so much for watching it till here, and meet you in the next lesson on the same chapter, atomic structure. But the next lesson is about the behavior of the proton, neutrons, and electrons in an electric field. Take care till then, until the next lesson.